What's good, everyone, and welcome back to the Water Boys channel as I'm going to give you the instant reaction of the Kansas City Chiefs defeating the Pittsburgh Steelers 36-3 and clinching the AFC West for the sixth consecutive year. But before I dive into any of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I will keep you up to date on anything Kansas City Chief related, NFL related, and you won't miss out on any news at all. But without further ado, let's dive right in. Before we dive into the game, let's dive into how the AFC West was taken today when a lot of us thought that wasn't going to happen today. And we're going to fast forward a little bit into the morning with the matchup of the LA Chargers going into Houston and taking a beatdown, which probably only people who would expect it, and maybe not even them as well, is the Houston fans, because Houston's had a very down year, of course, with everything Deshaun Watson that's happened, and this just was not a likely game. This looked like a gimme game for the Chargers. You can even ask Tim that as well. When we were going through the Chiefs-Chargers matchup, we knew that the Chargers would probably win out, and then that the Chiefs had a possible chance of winning out, even though it was a harder thing to do. And the Chargers blew a big game. I didn't see it happening, but also a lot of things happened in this as well with COVID. But again, you could say the Chiefs went through that as well this week, and we'll dive into that as well. But Chargers ended up losing 41-29. They were missing key pieces like the lights of a Joey Bosa and then your Austin Eckler and Mike Williams. But I think if you're a very talented team and you're a playoff team like that, you should be a team that's only won 3 games this year, and you should handily handle them very well. And they end up getting blown out, basically. They had a late gimme touchdown that Herbert scored at the end. But as for that, Houston was in control of that game even when it was closer, too. And it just had a feeling like Houston was going to take it, and they did. And with that being said, then you fast forward to the Chiefs and Steelers game, and that puts everything on the line now for KC. If they win today, they still keep the number 1 seed alive. They'll still be the number 1 seed, and as well, they'll clinch the division, which is crazy to think, because when you start the year at 3-4, Chargers were off to an amazing start. You had the Broncos as well off to a fast start that no one anticipated, and then the Raiders were the best team in the division at that point as well. And then now every team seems to be taking their slump, and you look at the Chiefs and they clinch the division. We have the old Chiefs at back, which we'll dive into as well with how the offense looked. And with that as well, let's get right into the game. From the jump, honestly, it was Chiefs all over the Steelers. It was crazy to see. Offense just keep clicking. We know how they do on their first drive, and then the one thing I wanted to see actually came to fruition as well. Let's just dive into the COVID. Kelsey was out. You had Bolton out. You had Tommy Townsend out. The kicker, Harrison Butker, out. They were missing pieces. Rashad Fenton out. So I wanted KC to capitalize on this. I wanted it to be a blowout victory, which is what it was, at a 36-10 as well. So the media could struggle to find something to, go after, to say, oh, this team isn't the best team. I think they proved that they're probably the most complete team as well. They had depth everywhere, and I'll dive in right here as well so I don't forget, because there's a lot to go over. Is unfortunately Clyde Edwards-Helaire took a collarbone injury. He landed straight on his shoulder. We'll have to see how that looks in the coming days as well. But Williams and Gore stood their own, held the ground. They were running all over Pittsburgh all day. Gore actually looked amazing receiving out of the backfield, and so did Williams too. So it's good to have complementary backs like that as well. I do think, even though you have 2 good backs, I think Helaire missing will hurt as well, because also, rewind too, we did lose Jet McKinnon as well. Those are your 2 elusive backs, whereas Gore and Williams, they can catch the ball, but those are your power backs. So the elusiveness might be missing out of the backfield, but if the line keeps blocking the way they are as well, KC can still dominate in the run games with William and Gore. We'll just have to see how this injury is. I'm anticipating the worst, hoping for the best. We'll see how Helaire comes back as well, if we will see him again this year as well. My other key focal point I want to focus on was I wanted Mahomes to dominate without. I wanted it to be without Hill and Kelsey, and to be fair, it kind of was without Hill, but Hill was double teamed, so he left other men open. But we've seen that in the past too, where you had the likes of a Hardman, a Pringle, a Robinson, a Gordon, where Kelsey and Hill hold the double team, so you need someone else to step up. And that hasn't been what's been happening, and today it happened. Pringle, we've always wanted him to be the number 2 guy, and it looks like it clicked at the right time. He looked like your number one wide receiver. When Hill's double team, you need someone to step up, and Pringle did it. He took most of the snaps today, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, made the most of every opportunity. He looked really well. Hardman looked really well too in the limited snaps he took. He looked like the old Jet out there. There was, I think, his first catch. I thought if it wasn't for that shoestring, that would have been a touchdown on him. He did have a touchdown as well. Robinson, he's going to be Robinson. He had a few good catches. He had one where he ran backwards, but he going to do that. So that's the unfortunate thing. And Mahomes looked great as well. I want to say a little over, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, very efficient. It's the type of game you need to have in December where your quarterback is efficient and then you could run the ball and control the game is what they did throughout the whole night as well. And the defense, they held Pittsburgh's offense, which, like I said, one reason I don't like Pittsburgh at all is because they don't have an offense. So I knew the defense would dominate this game, and they did. Like, throughout the whole thing until the backups came. They gave up their first touchdown in the fourth quarter. But as for that, the starters held their own as well. They didn't score their first point until late in the third quarter when they kicked a field goal as well. And the defense looked great. The D-line looked great. They had sacks. They had interceptions. Ward had a great interception out there. Melvin Ingram on I want to say it was a clutch 4th and 2 or 3rd and 2 to force the 4th down. I can't remember exactly where. He didn't bite inside. He's forced Najee Harris out, and it didn't even get nowhere near the sticks. Like, he's been a huge addition, as we know, from Pittsburgh. This D-line looks great. This defense is keep a continuity of keep going, keep building, keep getting stronger. They look really well. There were some key injuries, which I can be concerned of, but we don't know how deep they are until Monday comes along and we get the initial injury report. But Matthew was hurt. He was pulled, but I don't know if it was his quad. I don't know if it was because he's really hurt or it's precautionary reasons. We'll have to see. I saw Gay look like he hurt his knee as well. He was out too, but again, that was towards the end, so it might be precautionary. We'll just have to see how the week lineup goes as well. And let's talk about the special teams because thank you that they weren't fully dependent on, but when their numbers were called on, they did really well. Tommy Townsend's brother, Johnny, did really well. He had one very bad punt, but it didn't cost anything bad. And Elliott Fry, he missed an extra point and he missed a field goal, but as well, he made 2 field goals and he made 2 extra points. So that's what you're going to get for someone who hasn't kicked since 2017, but as well, at least it wasn't a close game to where those would have been very crucial, and KC knew that they didn't need their special teams to be dependent on as long as Mahomes controlled the game and everything looked great. But yeah, wrapping this up, we are back on top. AFC West 6 in a row, going for that number 1 seed. Next week is going to be very interesting because we don't have no more home games, hopefully, until the playoffs. We'll have to see how that 1 seed goes, but we're going to Cincinnati. That'll be a tough matchup as well. Joe Burrow, he threw 4 touchdowns, over 500 yards. We know how that offense goes with Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, and Joe Mixon. They're very explosive. That will be a tough matchup. We'll have to see how that goes. Definitely going to Cincinnati. I will give you a preview later on in the week, but it's definitely something to be very crazy as well because that could be the game that could wrap number 1 seed, or if KC loses, everything can still fluctuate and everything can be wide open in the AFC. So we'll just have to see how everything pans out. But with that as well, thank you for checking out my reaction. Thank you for checking out the video. Please do be sure to subscribe and like. And with that, I am taking